friend. What an exciting start to Wednesday. I always think that, lemonade out of lemons, if anyone thinks that this isn't live, now you know it is live. We really do go live every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I can prove it because of technical difficulties like we just had. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your grace. I really appreciate it. I know the tech team really appreciates it. So thank you so, so much. I have missed you because we missed last week. I'm so sorry about that, but we rescheduled for January. And I'm so excited because I feel like December brings lots of new opportunities and lots of chances to kind of reset and re-engage with our goals and what we want to accomplish. So I know I said it earlier, but I would love to say hi to you. If you could say hi in the chat and let me know where you're coming in from, maybe what's in your cup. Big thank you to Liz and Jeff and Jen and Giacomo and Jim for being so patient and coming over so quickly from the other stream. But hopefully the rainy days in New Jersey for Jim or the seemingly nice weather for me in Austin will find its way to you wherever you are. And I know it can be really a luxurious thought to think that you're going to come here today, steal a bunch of wisdom from Diane and I, which you are, don't worry, but to just kind of lean back, grab a popcorn, throw it up in the air and relax. But what we would love, love, love is if you could lean forward, get those keyboards a typing and be active in this conversation with us. If you have comments, if you have questions, if you're like, that didn't make sense, if you're like, Jeff, can you send that link again? We would just love to see you here. So big hi to Eve and Maria and Tiana from Houston, Texas, not far from me. And Harsha and Shannon from Denver, Colorado. I think that the snow has started in Denver. I know it's started in other parts of Colorado. So hopefully you are staying warm as your white holiday season trickles down upon you. So thanks for saying hi to Erin. Good to see you in LA and everyone else who's joining. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Like I said, December always brings interesting opportunities, whether you work in corporate or whether you work for yourself in a freelance or entrepreneurial capacity, because it is a chance to kind of reset. Everyone hibernates a little bit, whether it is Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa or whatever it is you celebrate. Everybody seems to like hibernate a little bit. So it's a good opportunity to think about, what do I want to do? What's next? And I think it brings a lot of itchings of transitions. And that could be a very micro movement transition, setting a new goal for yourself. It could be a massive change that you want to make, like a new job, or maybe going after a new title, or if I could have one wish for you, it would be going for a raise, going for that opportunity to earn more money for the awesome work that you do day in and day out. So as I was thinking about this need for that sort of change and reflection, I was like, who can I get that thinks about this topic day in and day out? Like, this is all they do. This is what they focus on. They have the tips, the tactics, the strategies that we can copy, steal, and implement and use for ourselves. And that's when I was like, duh, Diana. So if you haven't done your Google stalking already, don't worry, we'll drop a link here in the chat. You can kind of like do your Google stalking offline, because if you think that you're here for like the basic 101, no, we are diving into the good stuff. So you can do your Google stalking on your own. But you might recognize her friendly face because she is all over LinkedIn. She is not only a fellow LinkedIn learning instructor, but her daily posts of inspiration and confidence boosting content I know come across my feed all the time. So if you recognize her face, it's probably because it's been in your feed before. So that maybe is why she's going to look so familiar. So I hope that Kelly and Lewis and Olivia and Danny and Amar can help me by raising their cup and welcoming Diana to chat with us today.
Hey, Kim.
So good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to give props of how you handled this tech challenge here, and you were just smooth and calm right now. We can't tell anything that happened behind the stage here.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your patience and grace as we scramble to reorganize. But I have been looking forward to this conversation with you all week. Like I'm
Oh, me
so
too.
excited. This is going to be so much fun because you are such a wealth of knowledge. And I'm curious, I know that people are going to do their own Google stalking on you, but I'm curious, like, how did you land on this out of all the things that you could be talking about, like where your passion, like where did this come from?
Yeah, such a great question. First of all, hello to the audience here. So great to see many of you. I'm so stoked to be here. How I got started? Well, it's because I pivoted. I had at least 5 to 7 different career pivots in my career. I went from working in operations, then training, then marketing, consulting, and recruiting. And I kept pivoting because I was trying to find my thing. I wanted something more fulfilling, more meaningful, more purposeful. And I knew that I always wanted to work with people, directly with people, like impacting their lives of what they're meant to do in this career. So, how I got started was really about 10 years ago, to 2011, when I lost my job. I lost my job and I decided to start my business. And then a month later, I got hired to Google Canada as their first and only recruiter to help them recruit for the best of the best talent. And I took that as a sign for me to really understand what employers look for. And then a year later, after that work, a lot of people came to me and asking me for help on how do I pivot? How do I position my for success? How do I brand myself? And yeah, the rest is history.
I love it. And I'm so glad you brought up the subject matter of standing out because I really feel like that is something that in December and January that everyone here has the opportunity to reset and say either how do I show my boss or show, whoever it is, my higher ups, all of the standout work that I did throughout 2022, or if maybe they didn't have that game plan in place, how can they say, okay, 2023, here's how I'm going to set myself up for success to stand out and really take charge as we come into the new year?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's so many things we can think about. Perhaps I can to get things started. Let's just think about from an employer standpoint of what they look for when it comes to standing out, right? Having recruited for like tons of high performing roles or competitive roles, a few things employers look for is number one is around your performance, right? Are you considered a high performer? So you really want to talk about your performance, your achievements, and your results. Number two is you want to talk about your progression. How have you grown in your career? Right? So have you taken on more responsibilities, more leadership roles, whatever that is, how big your scope of work, you want to talk about that progression there. And then the third is think about promotions, the type of promotions you've had. If you had a fast track career, you want to highlight the things that all these three things are going to be an indicator to being top talent or how to stand out as a high potential talent there.
I'm curious, for someone who wants to set themselves up for success in 2023 and has kind of decided, you know what, I want to go to my boss, let's call it 6 months into the new year or, a quarter and ask for more money, right? Ask for that raise. But obviously, we know we can't just walk in and be like, give me more money. I wish it were that easy.
Yeah.
No, you have to show like, here's either what I've been doing or here's how I've been improving the numbers. What do you use or what do you recommend people use to either track their progress or sort of have the why, if you will, so that when they go into their boss or they go into upper management, they have that sort of arsenal of reasoning of why this makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the number one thing I was talking about is having proof, right? The evidence of
Yeah.
support, right? So the proof, which is what we're talking about, like tracking here. So the proof is key, especially whether you're going asking for a boss for a promotion, a raise, or you're trying to sell yourself in an interview. You have to have proof there. And from my experience, I find most people track the responsibilities of what they've done, not what they've done differently. What you've done differently and was what makes you stand out or the value add that you bring. And that's like that next level of thinking, of really thinking about, well, how did I really contribute? What difference did I make? What was really the true impact? So I would suggest for people to at least start tracking their monthly or even quarterly progress. Like I like to do this too, even for my own client wins. I would track my monthly client wins, for example. And then I would think about, okay, well, what are the stories? What were the challenges? What were the lessons learned? What could I do differently next time? Tracking all that. And it's a great way in year end for you to review, oh, every month, these are the things that you've done. And what is the core theme here? Is it the core theme that you've helped, let's say, double the business, get more new clients, improve a process? Whatever that is you want to think about those metrics of success. What are those metrics that the employer would use to measure performance? And you want to highlight of how you improve those metrics there.
I love that idea of really kind of going in with those metrics. Again, just having them ready, because I think that part is really important. And I'm glad that Giacomo brought this up, which is, what if you have a new boss? I know obviously December can sometimes bring shakeups we've heard all the stories about people doing layoffs, consolidations, maybe your boss switched positions or you went to a new position. If you have a new boss who kind of doesn't have any history on you, doesn't know the improvements that you've made throughout the year, how can you establish that relationship with a new boss to say, okay, here's how I want to be evaluated, or maybe learn more about how they like to evaluate?
Yeah, such a great question. And I'm curious to hear the audience, like how many of you had multiple new bosses in this past year? I always hear that all the time. I had 5 bosses in the last 3 years. And it could be frustrating for some, right? Because you've built up all this equity here. So I think first of all is we need to really establish that trust with your new boss. I think that's really key. You got to establish trust, understand a little bit about what are their priorities, what are they brought on to do, how can you help them, like get to know them first before making your own request, right? Because they obviously have expectations of what they need to deliver. So take that time to build that trust and rapport first, and then go in prepared. Give them a bit of context or history of things that you've done. This could just be like a 1-pager. We're not talking like a booklet of everything that you've done. Right? That would be too much information, or it would just be too much to read. But have like a 1 or 2 pager, give context of what you were set to do in the beginning of the year and what you've accomplished. And here are some of those incremental improvements, the impact that you've made, and what are you proud of, or the skills that you've developed, right? Show them that journey so they can see that there. You don't want to go in right away like, I've been here for 2 years and I deserve a promotion.
Yeah, no.
What?
And
No.
I'm sure you've handled people before that when you give them that advice, they're like, oh, but Diana, it feels like I'm like promoting myself, or it just feels like sleazy, like I'm selling myself, like just, like I can't, like, what do you say to your clients when, you give them that advice and they sort of know that it's true, but then they're like, but I feel icky, or like, I feel like like, how do I do that in a way that doesn't feel like,
Yeah, I love this question because I get this all the time. Like most people don't feel comfortable or confident talking about themselves. So there is this confidence piece, or, studies have shown that 70% of people have experienced imposter syndrome. And, even though you're successful, you're great at what you do, but you're not sure if you deserve it or you don't want to talk about it. And so there are 3 things I talk about first in terms of thinking how to become more confident in promoting yourself. Number 1 is you need to recognize your value. So taking the time to really identify your proud accomplishments, your strengths and qualities, just taking a moment to do that, because oftentimes it could surprise you, things that you never thought about, some things that may just come so natural to you that you don't think it's a big deal, but that could be a big deal. So taking time to do that exercise, or even asking people of what value that you bring, will be an eye-opening exercise. Okay, so just by doing that, it's going to be like, wow. And then the second step then is taking the time to believe in your value. So this is really that mindset and confidence piece, right? Of believing that you're awesome at what you do, that you're great, like giving yourself a pat on the back as well. I don't think we often celebrate enough of our achievements, or giving ourselves a pat on the back that, hey, this is what I'm great at. And slowly that's going to help you build your confidence, believe that, hey, this is what I'm really great at. And then the third step then is voicing your value. So this is where you want to start essentially talking about your achievements, your wins. It doesn't have to be all at once in your performance year-end review meeting. You don't want to wait till that. You actually want to start dropping breadcrumbs throughout the year of, hey, this is something that, that I'm really proud of that we achieved. Like it could be at a status update meeting or the one-on-ones instead of waiting till the end of the year. And slowly that's going to give you the confidence, right? To build that confidence in promoting yourself. And I see this a lot with clients I help coach for interviews where they really have to pitch and promote themselves. And the key here is that you want to have a theme. You don't need to talk about everything that you've done or everything because it's too overwhelming. You want to think of the key themes, your key unique selling points, like what are your top 3 that will really make you stand out?
And are you thinking like, when you're thinking about these breadcrumbs, I feel like a lot of people will say, well, my boss is really busy and I don't have one-on-ones with him or her. I don't come into contact regularly. Do you recommend that people start kind of being a little more proactive and telling their boss or telling upper management, I want to meet with you every quarter for 30 minutes or monthly, or what do you recommend with your clients when they say, well, I just don't have a lot of face time with upper management?
Yeah, I hear this a lot too, right? So I think if it's your immediate boss, it could be maybe a monthly one-on-one, or it could be every other month. But ideally, probably immediate boss would be like every month that you'll get FaceTime there. Upper management, I think it depends on the policy, what that looks like. But even to be able to get a quarterly always helps there. I would say, this is where going back into being the CEO of your career, being proactive in managing. There is FaceTime, like the FaceTime is just one way of being able to communicate your value. There are other ways you can showcase your value, whether it's through these weekly status update meetings, emails, or even what the type of content you put out on LinkedIn, for example. There are different ways that you can showcase your value through different channels of communication there, right? So think about if you have a chance, even if you don't have one-on-one with upper management, but you have a presentation coming up with them, how can you tell your story that's related to the business, but also the impact that you've made that really moved the needle forward there?
And do you find that there are specific, either phrases or frameworks that you tell your clients to use just because they work kind of consistently across all industries?
Yeah, so there's definitely some models, right? Like I think about going back to a lot of work I do in interview coaching. Oftentimes every question you want to keep it to 2 minutes long. You really want to have the hook statement, right? Like what's that headline that will catch the attention? So think of like a newspaper headline statement will catch that attention there. And then you give some essentially the context of it, like what were the challenges, what was your goal? And then you give some highlights of some of the key actions that you took. Right? And what's the so what of it? What's the bottom line impact at the end? So you keep it into 3s, like 1, 2, 3. That makes it easy for people to follow and understand there.
And I'm curious, obviously you've had hundreds of clients throughout the years. What is a good rule of thumb, if there is one at all, that when you go in and ask for a raise, should you have kind of a number in mind or a percentage in mind? Or do you wait for the company or your boss to kind of give you what they think that you should be getting?
Yeah, this is a whole conversation we could be talking about here. So I think from an internal move, like this is like internal move, I think salary negotiation is a little different from external when you're getting a new offer. From my experience, people tend to have a bigger jump when they're making an external move versus an internal move, right? Internal move, there are certain policies and you probably hear the standard 2 to 3% raise, which is less than inflation these days, right? So I think first of all, you want to do your research. You need to understand like where are you at in terms of your salary there? Like, are you on par or not? Or do your market research to understand that. And then understand also internally, there are different levels. A lot of times there are different levels within the role that you're in, the different bands are there, like what band are you at? Because that will also set the range of how far they can go as well. So sometimes it's not necessarily asking about the number you want, it's asking, can I improve in the level of your role that will automatically improve your salary there. Right. So keep that in mind. It's not just talking about the number, but it's about the leveling of the job. Like, are you at the right level or do you need to move into the new level there?
And I know one thing that you talk a lot about is this kind of perceived market value. And if you are kind of presenting to your boss or your company, hey, this is the value I'm bringing to the table, either kind of you're going to recognize that, or, there's 10 other companies that are going to recognize that I'm, a rock star, and that I know my stuff and I know what's going on. How can you kind of garner that perceived value for yourself in a way that I know some people probably lowball themselves, oh, I'm really not that good, when in reality they are that good. Or maybe some people are on the other side of the coin where it's like they think they're so great, and then they're like, well, you're actually just kind of average. So how can you get, I guess, sort of this non-biased look on like, what is your perceived market value, or how do you even calculate that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, right? So first of all, like if I really believe if you want to increase your market value, your perceived market value, to me, the first thing you really need to work on is doubling down on elevating your brand. Elevating your brand in terms of what are you known for, what are you great at, what value you bring to the table. So that's a whole piece of working on the personal branding. From what I've seen is that when you really work on elevating your brand, it really elevates that perceived value, which in turn helping you get bigger opportunities and more increasing the income. Now, in order to do that, first of all, I think is that one needs to be a great performer. Like you got to be able to deliver great work, right? In terms of being seen that someone who is reliable, resourceful, responsive, who's seen as already that high potential talent, right? So meaning that you're in demand, like the employer wants to retain you. And when that happens, right, that if the employer, if you know that you're recognized as like the top performer, they want to retain you, and you get, let's say, external opportunities coming at you, like knock at the door, like, hey, there's opportunities. You can let your employer know, like if they want to retain you, they may up the salary or give you whatever, a better title, whatever that is. That's when you can negotiate. The key here is you need to have leverage. If you don't have these bargaining chips or leverage, it's hard to start that conversation, right? So going back, you have to have a great brand. You got to already have a great reputation. You got to be delivering great work. And then you got to be in demand so that you have things to work with and to negotiate with there.
I love that. And I love this idea of, really developing yourself and having yourself as like a sellable, tool and skill set and brand that you bring to the table. I love, this is going to be a little bit of I think a tricky question. So I'm very curious to see how you answer this, but if you have a perceived value because your brand is so strong, or because you are so well accomplished, what happens in the scenario, as Jeff pointed out, that you are interviewing for a new position or you're interviewing for a new job and they say, you know what, we think you're overqualified. You're too good. Your brand is too good for this position that we're hiring for.
I love this question. Overqualified as feedback. So typically what I see when I hear about these situations is going back to positioning, meaning that do you have a good enough understanding of the job and what they're really looking for? And are you conveying the right points that will make them feel that you are the right fit for the job? So I'm going to think of an example here. What would be an example? Overqualified could be too much, let's say, management experience, or just say leadership experience, like too much management experience for the job, right? So if you are constantly talking about all these things that you've done, that you delegate, that you have this vision and you get people to do, but the job requires to be more hands-on, then it's not really the right fit. So they see it as more overqualified. So what we really want to think about here is what is really the need of this job. Like oftentimes from my experience, most people don't spend enough time in evaluating the core hiring need for the role. Like what are the primary responsibilities and deliverables? Once you understand that, that's when you can really tailor, like for example, in this case, if the job requires someone who's really more executional or implementational, you want to highlight more of that versus just you being a visionary, being a strategic planner.
Yeah, right.
To showcase that fit.
So really just kind of reverse engineering in really great detail, whatever the job description is.
Part of it. Yes. Now it's okay to also mention, to showcase that. Let's just say I have people where let's say they are VP level role and they want to apply for a director level job. right?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, why do you want to take a step back, right? And in some cases, like the answers could be that, right, that you enjoy actually being more hands-on, or you want to have less responsibility, but you're still as motivated, right? You want to be more connected to the people. You want to give essentially your reason, the motivation of why you're really interested in this type of opportunity there, right? That motivation piece is really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like that can also really change people's perceptions of you and why you want to do that
Yes,
work.
yes. Could I
I
add one more
think,
thing?
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna add
yeah.
one more thing as we're talking about this. I think the other key here is around showcasing that you have this growth mindset. Sometimes when people come in with a lot of experience, they may think that they know it all already, right? So are you coming across as like I already know it all, I know how to do all this, or are you showcasing curiosity and interest and ambition that like, hey, like despite my experience, I'm still, learning every day. I think this is that really key piece, is showcasing that growth mindset, learner's mindset, that you're not just stuck in your own way of doing certain things there, especially in today's changing world.
Oh, 100%. People want to know that you can bend and flex and ride with the times. There's no doubt about that. I think Patty might win for the most phrases that I don't know what they mean. So I don't know. Her question is the 3 model for answering questions better than the STAR model? And I will raise my hand as the village idiot and say, I don't even know what the 3 model for answering question is, nor do I know what the STAR model is. So do you know what those are? And
yes.
So can you at least educate me and then educate Patty on the original question?
Yes, great question. Thank you, Patty. So the 3 model, there's different ways of looking. So the 3, I like to always use the power of 3 model, meaning if you have motivational questions, like tell me, why are you interested in this job? Why are you interested in this role? Or why are you the ideal candidate for this job? You want to answer in the power of 3, giving 3 compelling reasons, and then you elaborate further in giving proof. That is how you build what I call a strong business case. So it's the power of 3. Studies have shown when you speak in power of 3 rules, you are more memorable. That's just the studies have shown that. So that's the power of 3. So the 3 model in terms of behavioral questions, when you get asked, like, tell me a time when you faced a problem, or tell me a time when you faced a conflict, there is a model you can follow in answering the question. A popular one is the STAR model, which is situation, task, action, result. Situation, task, action, result. So you give a little context, you tell them what action you took, and then what was the outcome. So another model for that I like to use is called the CAR model. Context, action, result. So the context, which is similar to the ST here, situation and task, where you give a little bit of context of what was the situation, what was the problem, what was at risk, what were you trying to solve, what was your mandate. Then you move into the action steps, which is where you want to spend majority of the time talking about what did you do, not just what your team did, but what did you do and what was the outcome there. Okay, so that's the model that makes it easier for people to understand. Most people, from my experience, tend to ramble. In interviews, or even when they're trying to pitch themselves, they have a laundry list of things they want to talk about. But when you follow a model, it makes it easier for people to take notes.
Interesting. Okay, see, I didn't know any of this. So this is all new. I love this idea of the CAR model, the context, action, result. I didn't even know. I mean, that's great. Do you feel like that's a lot of the ways that you should present just to everyone, even if it's not an interview, but to your boss or to upper management?
For sure, for sure. The key here is that you want to avoid rambling. And the other thing is that you want to think about, when we think about action, is that you're going to start thinking about action verbs, right? Using words such as built, develop, created. These are more stronger power words that makes you appear more like a leader as well, right? So by using that, it's much more effective than just going into a story. So one of the key things that I see, the common mistake people make, is that they tell too much of a story and miss the point or the message. So we really want to think about, well, here's a story, but what is the so what of the story?
Got it. What's the end result?
What's the end result? What did I learn from it? What impact did I make? What skills I develop? This is the so what. And I'm going to tell you, Kim, most people do not answer that. Like most, when I work with clients, they give the surface level, this is what happened, but they forget the so what. And this is the thing that I really learned when I was in business school as well, is really what's the so what? We got to peel the onion more, is like, what does that mean to the employer? What does it mean to the stakeholder? What does this mean to my career as well?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I love this idea of really peeling back the onion. Because again, I just feel like December, it's a lot of self-reflection time. It's a lot of, New Year's resolutions, forward setting for like the new year, new you, all that sort of stuff. So if you've sort of reflected on your inner onion and you're kind of peeling yourself back, and you realize, you know what, I think what I really need is I need to look at new opportunities, or I want more opportunities when it comes to my career and work. I feel a little stagnant, or I feel like there's not a lot of fresh stuff going on there. I know that that's something that you really have an expertise in, is like attracting new opportunities, making yourself available for new opportunities. What are like one or two tactics that you find work really well when it comes to kind of creating or attracting these new opportunities for yourself?
Yeah, such a great question. How to attract new opportunities. So, a few things. Let's just put in perspective. When it comes to change, what happens? People tend to have fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of, am I good enough? Right? So we need to recognize this change, that it's uncomfortable, it's not easy. And so we really need to work on embracing that fear as well, right? We got to acknowledge those fears because it's really normal. And this is why sometimes for some people, change could happen in 3 months. For some people, it can be 2 years, right? Depending on your risk tolerance there. So that's number one. Number two is we need to identify how big of a change you are looking to make, because that will set your expectations and your plan of how far to commitment you need to commit to this change. So as an example, for some, the easiest change could be finding a new job in another company in a similar industry. For some, it could be, I want to just move to another industry because I've been in the same industry for like 10 plus years here. So that's another easier change to make. The biggest or hardest change to make is for those who want to completely change careers, completely change industries. That's like the biggest change to make. So the biggest one I could say is that either someone who wants to go from corporate to entrepreneurship or vice versa. That I've seen for supporting people could take a year or 2 years, because the first year could be just figuring things out, setting things up. The second year is when you're really going to implement and to generate those opportunities there. So I think we got to understand what type of change you're going to make, because that's going to help you think about, like, is it worth it? Am I willing to commit to this? And do I have the financial means to make that change? Now, in terms of your question around how do I attract these new opportunities, I think what's really important is that first we need to have this possibilities mindset, right? Because if we're so used to doing what we're used to doing for years and years, we're conditioned to just thinking about these are the only opportunities in front of me right now, because that's all I know. So we need to have this possibilities mindset, like, hey, what is possible? What is out there? What are other people doing? Go explore. If it's something that interests you, go ask more questions, go entertain it, and see if that really aligns with you. Does it, like, call to your soul? Is it something you're really passionate about there? So if you think, for me, like when I made these career pivots, I knew I wanted to work with more people. I didn't know what that looked like yet. So I kept making changes in my career, going from operations to training to marketing to recruiting. And it got me closer, right? Working with people, like recruiting. But it wasn't it yet. Like my soul wasn't, but like, this is so good. It wasn't until I got into coaching and speaking, I was like, oh my God, my heart is like singing and I love this. That's when I knew. But it took me 7-8 years to get there, to make that big pivot, right? But I kept looking for it. So it's so important that even though that next move you make may not be, let's say, your dream career or dream job, the important questions you want to ask yourself is that, am I moving closer or further to where I want to go? And if it's moving closer, then you know you're on the right track, right? And you want to ask yourself, does that really help you with what you're trying to do? So when I got into recruiting, working at Google or at an MBA school for admissions, I knew that would get me closer to where I wanted to be, because I was working with like top talent, high performers, high achievers. I knew I want to work in that space and get to know them more. So that gave me that research, the intel to help me better serve my ideal clients. So think about what will you gain in these new opportunities there. And the very important thing is if you're looking to make a change, you need to start communicating in that way that of what you want to attract. So if you're, for example, even for me, I've been doing job search coaching, career pivot coaching for a decade now. And I know I want to serve in doing more corporate speaking or even business mentoring and advising. Even this year, one of the small adjustments I made on my LinkedIn was I called myself a global speaker because I wanted to attract more global speaking opportunities. And that's what led me to speaking at the UN 6 times this year, right? Just putting that intention out there or telling people like, I want to do more corporate speaking, creating a page for that or meeting LinkedIn instructors like, hey, this is what I want to do. So that people start referring you for those opportunities there, right? Or recently, one of the big changes I made, Kim, I'm going to share this with you, is that on Thanksgiving holiday, I created my first business mastermind, luxury wellness retreat and business mastermind for women entrepreneurs who left corporate to start their own business. And within a week, I filled it up.
I love that.
And part of it's communicating what you want and attracting those right people and opportunities. So even though I'm known as career pivot expert or personal branding expert, but I know I want to also serve entrepreneurs who are making that pivot from corporate because I see the future of work now is no longer just a 9-to-5 full-time work. It's no longer that. More people are looking to the gigs, like doing their own thing there. And so how can I support that audience? And you want to start talking about it to attract that.
Exactly. Really kind of honing in on what is going to be your ultimate end goal and how do you keep making baby steps towards that, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not like 100% a fit, but slowly making your way, getting those skill sets, getting closer and closer and closer to what ultimately, really lights you up. I feel like you have tons of tactics and tips from your many, many years working with clients. So I'm really excited to dive into these speed round questions with you because we are just going to blatantly copy all your homework here. So I hope you're okay with that.
Copy the homework here. You know what used to just resonate with me? I want to remind the audience is don't wait till you have everything figured out till you start or to make that change. If you're going to wait till you have this perfect plan, perfect idea, perfect career, it won't happen. So there's any just go do it. Take action, take massive action there and go test it out.
Totally. Okay. When it comes to work and your career, what is something that you have started doing lately or using lately that you just absolutely love? It could be a new app you started using or a new software program or really anything that you would tell your friends over brunch, like, I am obsessed with this.
So for me, it's less about an app, but this quarter, that's something I did differently. That's been a game changer for me is no meeting Mondays. I used to have my coaching days on Mondays, and this quarter since September, I started no meeting Mondays. And it's allowed me to think bigger, dream bigger, create new content, create new offerings, connect with new people, attract new opportunities. So for me, that has been a game changer. I also have a no meeting Fridays as well, where I pamper myself. And I really believe that we need to rest and have downtime in order to deliver our best work.
I love that. Such a good strategy. I'm curious to dig in if somebody wanted to start a no meeting Monday, but that thought seems really intimidating. What's like the first maybe baby step you took towards implementing a no meeting Monday?
Block time for yourself. Block time for yourself. So it could be simple as blocking a lunch hour. That's what I started doing. Blocking a lunch hour.
Yep.
Or blocking, I used to do first 90 minutes before, after I drop off kids at school. First 90 minutes is my thinking time, my CEO planning time. And so I would not have any meetings. So, and I noticed that has been a game changer, just me not being distracted, the first 90 minutes to myself. And then you start taking half days off, right? Half days off. And they're like, oh, this is good. Half days off. And they're like, oh, let's take a whole day off. Let's see what that is. Like,
I love that. That's such a good baby step, and one that everyone can do at least for, 45 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
Lunch is a pretty easy one that you can block off. Okay, I have this theory that because of these phones, these crazy things that we have attached to us all the time, that we are no longer the summation of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. We are instead the summation of the 5 either humans or brands or characters or anything that we consume, because even though we might not be spending time with people in real life, thanks to Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, we could be spending time with people's content or with people on this digital form. So I'm curious for you, what are some accounts or brands or humans, and it could be on any platform, could be on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or anything, that those accounts just light you up? You feel like you learn from them, or they just kind of bring you happiness?
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like I have so many. I can only list really my top 3 here. But one of the things I want to say is in the last few years since the pandemic here, I've just met so many amazing human beings from being online, whether it's LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram. And I really want to encourage people that, go out and meet people, because that's how you can come up with new ideas, new opportunities, new collaboration there. So that's something I've noticed, a huge change even for me. Like, I no longer just meet friends locally, but all over the world, which has really helped me with my business growth. So I would say a few people. There's a list of people. I would say one is Kim Perrell, who is an entrepreneur. I love just listening to her entrepreneur advice, just motivational tips. I love following her on Instagram and LinkedIn. Her book really on execution is great as well. Another one, Jessica Chang. She's a role model of mine, of just expert in communications on LinkedIn. I really love following her work. She really gives me a lot of inspiration there. And the other person, as I recently decided to create my own course, is I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's Sade Zahari. She's a big LinkedIn learning instructor as well. She has like 6 or 7 courses. She has a huge LinkedIn TikTok following, and her content is amazing on high performance, motivation, career leadership. I get a lot of inspiration of creating new content. And then I have many friends like Tiffany Uman, Shodu, and all my fellow career coaches there who create content, give me inspiration, coming up with new content every day there. And obviously you, Kim, I've been following you for years. I don't know if you know, but I just been following you for years. Like, seeing you running your live show gave me also inspiration of running my own show as well the last 2 years.
I love it. These are such good humans. I cannot wait to follow them. We'll throw their links also in the show notes for everybody to also follow along and see everything that we're seeing as well. So I know I had referenced it earlier a little bit, but this group that gets together every single week, we're a little nerdy, I will admit. And so we love homework. We love getting homework assignments. We love doing homework assignments. So if you could give all of us a homework assignment for the week, something we had to read, something we had to listen to, something that we had to do, what would be your homework assignment to us for us to complete this week?
Ooh, I love it. Well, because the year end is coming, I really want to recommend people to really reflect on your year, to really reflect on your highs and lows. What are your lessons learned in the past year? What are some of those? Identify these new opportunities and growth areas for you. Think about that. And think about what you really want. What is it that you really truly want to create? And from there, create an action plan. And I really want to encourage you, as you're thinking about this, is really think about, there have people talk a lot of the to-do list of what you need to do. I want you to think about that to-be list of who do you want to be to reach your next level, right? Is it to be more encouraging or courageous, inspiring, to be an action taker? Like, come up with that to-be list of who you want to be, as that will guide you in your actions and your behaviors and decisions there.
Oh, I love that. A to-be list. Let's do it. Okay.
To-be list.
If anybody creates their to-be list, you have to tag us in it so that we can see.
It's powerful.
I love it. Okay, where can people keep following you, keep learning from you? What platform do you spend the most time on? Or how can people keep soaking in all of your tips and tactics?
Yes. So I spend most time on LinkedIn. So definitely follow me at Diana YK You can also hop on over to my website at mymarketability.com and subscribe to my mailing list, where I'll share with you some of my best tips and my upcoming talks and events there. And then I also have my YouTube channel where all my long form training is all on there. So if you're looking for some more tips on networking, interviews, pitching yourself, hop on over there. You'll find tons of great content. Now I'm learning more. One thing I'm learning more now is creating short form videos on Instagram and TikTok. So I'm getting a lot of ideas from you too, Kim.
I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you for spending time with us this week and really helping us to learn as much as we can and set ourselves up for a really powerful and impactful 2023. So thank you so, so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Such an honor here. And I want to encourage you all to own your greatness with confidence to shine and thrive. That's my mantra. Right? Believe that you have what it takes and that believe you have something great to offer here.
Absolutely. And again, big thank you to Christopher and Jeff and Andrew and Jen and Giacomo and just Patty, everyone who was really patient with us in the beginning. I know we had some technical difficulties, so thank you for your patience and joining us over on this new link and live stream. If you missed this, there will be a replay that's available on LinkedIn as well as on all podcast networks starting next Tuesday. So I will see you next Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern for our very last coffee gathering. It doesn't even seem possible of 2022. So thank you so much for being here. I know Dana and I really appreciate it. So thanks, everybody.